Have you ever left a conversation feeling strangely, only to realize hours later that you never actually agreed with the person? At the time, everything sounded reasonable. Their confidence felt contagious. Maybe they weren't even aggressive. Maybe they were charming, helpful, friendly. But later, when the emotional fog cleared, something felt off. And that's the strange thing about manipulation. The most effective forms rarely feel like pressure. Most people imagine manipulation as something obvious. A pushy salesperson, a controlling partner, someone trying to force your hand. But in real life, it usually arrives disguised as urgency, guilt, obligation, or even kindness. And yet, some people seem unusually resistant to it. Not because they're suspicious of everyone, but because they've developed a few habits that quietly make manipulation incredibly difficult. The first habit is surprisingly simple. They don't rush to explain themselves. Picture this. Someone asks for a favor. You say no. Suddenly, you feel the need to explaining your decision. Most of us do this without thinking. But here's the problem. Every explanation creates an opening. Every reason becomes something that can be debated, challenged, or negotiated. People who are difficult to manipulate understand that not every decision needs a defense. Sometimes "I can't" is enough. Then there's another habit that's even more uncomfortable. They allow people to be disappointed. Think about how many decisions are made simply to avoid that feeling. A friend looks upset, a coworker seems frustrated, a family member gives you that look, and suddenly you're changing your plans just to restore emotional peace. But people who are hard to manipulate have learned something most of us spend years avoiding. Disappointment is not an emergency. Someone else's frustration doesn't automatically mean you've done something wrong. Of course, they still care about others. They're not cruel. They simply understand that keeping everyone happy is impossible, and trying to do so makes you incredibly easy to control. Another habit is that they separate confidence from credibility. This one catches people all the time. Have you ever met someone who sounded absolutely certain about everything? No hesitation, no doubt, no uncertainty, and somehow, confidence starts feeling like evidence. But people who are difficult to manipulate don't confuse certainty with truth. They pay attention to something deeper. Track record, consistency, reality. Because confidence can be performed, credibility has to be earned. And once you learn the difference, a surprising number of persuasive people lose their influence. Then there's a habit that almost nobody talks about. They notice emotional debt being created. Imagine someone doing you a favor you never requested, buying you something, helping you with something minor. At first it feels nice, but later, a request appears. A favor, a commitment, an expectation. Suddenly, you feel guilty saying no. Why? Because an invisible debt has been created. Now, healthy relationships involve mutual support. That's not the issue. The issue is when generosity quietly becomes leverage. People who are hard to manipulate notice when kindness comes with invisible strings attached. And because they notice it early, they're less likely to be pulled by it later. But the final habit might be the most powerful. They are comfortable changing their mind. At first, that sounds unrelated. Wouldn't changing your mind make you easier to influence? Actually, the opposite is often true. Manipulation frequently works by trapping people inside a position. You said yes before. You already committed. You've always believed this. You've come this far. So now you feel obligated to continue, even when something doesn't feel right anymore. But people who are difficult to manipulate don't see changing their mind as weakness. They see it as freedom. The freedom to update their thinking. The freedom to leave situations that no longer make sense. The freedom to say, "I know I agreed before, but I've reconsidered." And that freedom makes them remarkably difficult to corner. What's interesting is that none of these habits are really about controlling other people. They're about reducing the ways other people can control you.